Merry Christmas Eve and hello. Welcome to my little corner of YouTube. I'm really happy you decided to join me today. So, last time I was here, I don't even remember what I posted, and many things have changed since my last video. I have two little boys. We've moved a couple of times. There's just life moved on, and I didn't keep making videos, but I am a writer, and in the past few years, I have done some projects and put out some self-published projects into the world that I feel like I would like to kind of chronicle and record my journey as an author and as a writer. And so I figured today would be a really great place to start. I have a minute, and I thought I'd sit down with you with a cup of tea or a cup of coffee, and we can talk through where I've been, where I'm at, and where I'm going. So stay tuned, and thank you for joining me. Okay, so I have put out a few projects, but if we back up to the very beginning, in 2021, I published a little book called The Tale of the Mischievous Bunny. Anybody can self-publish on KDP. I did some, sweet little, very poorly low skill art drawings for it, and I mainly did it for my son at the time. I only had one son, and I did this for him, just to create our own culture of literature in our home, and having all of these stories that were like pent up in my mind and in my head. I wanted to get it out and just write him some books and write him some stories. So I published The Tale of the Mischievous Bunny in maybe 2022, I think, something like that. And my community around me loved it. They just loved it, and it was encouraging to me, even though I didn't at the time have any plans on publishing anymore or trying anything else. That was just something that happened at the time. As time moved on, I decided to revisit the process of self-publishing, and I did. And what came out of that were two little stories called, these are proof copies, Mrs. Trippett's Classic Country Primer, which is like a fun pretend iteration on the McGuffey readers that I used to love as a child. I found that I loved putting together like pieces of learning materials for kids, like numbers and colors and alphabet and things for them. And once again, my community just really came behind me and supported me. And it was just a little success. It wasn't something that's, going to win a prize in the future or anything. It was just my community was very supportive, and I was really thankful for that. Then, a little while after, so maybe The Mischievous Bunny was in 2022. I think I did this in 2023. And then in 2024, I published my first story, which would be, The Tale of the Mischievous Bunny was the first of a series, but I didn't know it then, so I guess this is the second book in a series called The World of Sugarcane Lane. And The World of Sugarcane Lane is a series of children's books, very heavy in the arena of Beatrix Potter and Tasha Tudor and all of these authors that I loved growing up, where we have stories of anthropomorphic animals that learn valuable lessons in life, and learn how to, be a friend, or how to treat others, or learn something about themselves. And it all takes place on a farm, because I grew up on a farm, and the little lane that is right in the middle of the farm that kind of leads back into the larger part of the property is called Sugarcane Lane. So this story is the second in a series called The World of Sugarcane Lane. It's called Autumn on Sugarcane Lane, and it's a story about a little girl named Elizabeth who does some baking with her grandmother one day, and it was a really sweet little story. And once again, my community came behind me. Really cheap, really little, really simple, like not a lot of pages, but my community was just so loving towards me and so supportive, so I decided I was going to keep on going. Somewhere around this time, I started revisiting longer, older genre ideas that I had as a young college student, because while I had lots of poetry and little short stories and songs and things, like growing up, I had never really dabbled in long form stories or anything beyond a short story. But one day in college, I just turned in an essay that was very like influenced by fiction, like a heavy fiction essay. And my professor, who was also a self-published author at that time, looked at me and she said, "You're a great writer. Do you write books?" And that was so encouraging to me. And it was the first time that I ever turned the lens on myself and saw myself as a writer. Like I've always been acknowledged as somebody who like is good with a pen or good with words, or I'm just a gifted writer. Like people would tell me that, but I never believed it growing up. But when my professor in college looked at me and applauded the work that I had turned in, I remember thinking like, wow, like maybe there is something here. So in that year and that following summer and following year, I just produced and produced and produced and produced. I have notebooks of ideas and story beginnings and plot ideas. I've got, paintings and things that I did that I would do to go along with the stories. And I just had this like renaissance of art and writing and literature and books and movies that all poured into my ability to write and be a good writer. And so as time went on, I still continued to write a little bit, but I did not stay in that high volume of production, that high volume of content production that I had been in that summer after my professor had encouraged me. So those are the stories that I went back to after I finished Autumn on Sugarcane Lane. And there was a story that, there was a scene that I wrote, and I felt like I had written it really well as like a draft. And it was just something that continued to like pop into my mind every couple of years. I'm like, this is it's something interesting. Like this is, not a unique idea in itself, but the scene has potential. And so I visited that scene again, and it wasn't until summer of 2024 that I kind of had like a breakthrough in what I wanted to do with the scene and what I wanted to do with this piece. And it slowly but surely became a novel, like a young adult novel that I'm still in the first draft of, like I've been plucking away for the past couple months. It is a novel that I'm calling Project Tears, is what it's called. So it's called Project Tears, and that's what I'll refer to it as here until the day that it releases, whether that be traditional publishing or self-publishing or whatever. But for now, it's just called Project Tears. So I have a digital, a tablet here with docs because you're on my phone. I can't look at my word count, but oops, it says I have to update before I see it. I think I'm sitting at 30 something thousand words. I think it's not a large amount of success, like not a large amount of accomplishment so far, especially when my goal has to be at least 100,000 words. My writing style is highly descriptive and cinematic, and I understand that this like purple flowery way of writing will eventually be trimmed and cut down to be more concentrated as a story. And so I feel the internal pressure on myself to make sure that I write at least 100,000 words. So I think I'm at chapter 10 right now. And so it's funny, the way I do the numbers in my head is that, if I'm at 30,000 words, I'm at chapter 10, then if I divide up evenly how many words there are, I think I'm going to have to go all the way to somewhere around 30 to 40 chapters with a couple thousand words in each chapter. I still have a lot of work to do on this story. I don't feel like I have plot holes. I feel like my characters are pretty well fleshed out and developed, but I've done as much pre-planning as I needed to do. As a matter of fact, it irked me how long I spent pre-planning and plotting and planning and plotting that finally in August I sat down and said, I just need to start writing. So in August, I sat down and started writing, and from August to December, I have a grand total of about 30. I might be sitting at like 35,000 words, maybe. Somewhere between 30 and 35,000 words for about 10 chapters. So that's where I'm at on Project Tears. This is a big project that may take more subsequent years, but it's fun. It is a fantasy fiction novel. I really take pride in the world building that I've done. It's very intriguing and very, very interesting. And so if I were to give like a little bit of a backstory, the story takes place in a kingdom that is cursed, but the curse makes people, I don't know what I'm going to say here. What am I going to say? The people are cursed into sentient objects and animals at nighttime. So it's giving very Beauty and the Beast, but it's a cool story. That's just like a base, you know, there's so much more that's happening in the world and so much more that's happening in the story, but pretty cool. So I enjoy writing it. I'm discovering things, and I've had moments in the story where I like finish typing a sequence or a scene, and I'm just like, if I loved writing that, I know that people are going to love reading it. So it's just a lot of fun, really, really fun. So that's Project Tears. I hope that it'll be a big project that I can share a lot about in the future, and that a lot of content will be focused on Project Tears. I'm really proud of it so far. And I just know that if this is how I feel with a partial first draft, how it's going to evolve and change is also going to be a source of satisfaction and accomplishment and pride for me. So that's Project Tears, which was started about the time as Autumn on Sugarcane Lane. So the next projects that I was working on, this was something called Livingstone's Home Book of Spring. This is a very unique, quirky project that I don't see anywhere else in the world. I don't know how to describe this other than an inspirational picture book for grown-ups. It comes with a couple of recipes in it that you can cook that are very springy, but it's also rooted in a fictional world. So I don't know exactly how to describe it, but my two main characters, it's not even like a book about people. This is just like a book that's in a fictional world. It's like a resource that would be in a fictional world, if that makes sense. So my people that are like supposedly the writers of this book, or the people that created this book, are called Lex and Lila Livingstone. And so this is called Livingstone's Home Book of Spring, and it's mainly a picture book plus a recipe book plus a home journal that, there's people out there like me that like little stuff like this. So this will be one of 4. If there's a home book of spring, there will also be a home book of autumn, a home book of winter, and a home book of summer as well. So I don't know how to describe this other than just a picture book with lots of inspiration for home. Maybe one day it'll become like a coffee table book. People can sit and read and open up and enjoy. So that's really fun. After that, I started really zooming in and zoning in on the world of Sugarcane Lane. The world of Sugarcane Lane, again, is a world very fictionalized, but also based off of my childhood. My childhood was rooted in barefoot days on a farm, learning about myself, learning about the world around me, who I was. And these stories are inspired by real things that have happened in my life. But furthermore, the realist part is that the people in the story are real people that are people in my life and my family, except I've changed their names. And then the animals, most of them, I'd probably say 85% of them are people that or animals that have lived on the farm, like animals that have existed. So the first compilation is called Autumntide Tales, and this is a compilation of 4 stories. So Autumntide Tales has 4 very fallish, very autumn stories in it that you can sit one day and just sit with a cup of coffee or tea or apple cider or something just on your porch and just get lost in this world with your child. I think that there's very little good quality, wholesome children's literature out in the world, and I am very heavily associated with the homeschool scene as well. I've taught in public school for a long time, but now I'm employed by and am participating in I would even call myself a homeschool parent. My little boy is just about to be pre-K age, but I've been doing early learning with him for a long time, and he's actually on a kindergarten curriculum right now, flying through it with flying colors. It's really beautiful to watch. So I'm really heavily integrated with the homeschool scene right now. And, I'm not ashamed to say that I'm also heavily integrated with the Christian homeschool scene as well. And so this is just a wholesome story that you can trust and open up, and your kids will just be influenced by good things like shared experiences, good quality like teachings on virtue and integrity, character studies and things. Those are just things that I really love providing for children. So in Autumntide Tales, there are 4 stories. There's Cider Mouse, The Tale of Tilly Thimblewhisker and the Tart Trouble, Autumn on Sugarcane Lane, and Mule Day. So those stories are really special to me because all of them have some root in my life. You know, specifically, Mule Day is one that is really heavily special to me because there's actually a real Mule Day festival in Georgia that my family likes to go to every year. And my grandpa took us there when I was a little girl. So every year it was an annual memory I had for a long time. So I did a story about Mule Day that really invites children into the wonder of a festival where you have shared experiences and outdoor country living. And it's really a fun story. It's really a beautiful story. So that's Autumntide Tales. Again, it will be part of a larger series where there will be a compilation of tales for every season. So we have Autumntide Tales, and slotted for the future is Summertide Tales, Wintertide Tales, and Springtide Tales. And I haven't decided if Wintertide is going to be Yuletide. I think that's more Christmassy, but I think I want to call it Wintertide because it will have more wintry stories, not just Christmas stories. So you can find this on Amazon. You can find, actually, these two, the early publications, are no longer available online because I redid Autumn on Sugarcane Lane to go in here. So there's a new version of this. Like, nothing has changed except the formatting and some of the images. The Tale of Mistress Bunny, I don't have a copy with me now, but there's a second edition that's available online as well. So a new story that was released just recently, like at the beginning of December, was called A Patchwork Christmas. And I don't have it with me, but I have a quick flip through on Instagram. So if you're present on Instagram, you can, go over there. It's Kaylee Trippett Author on Instagram. You can find it and see, what all's been going on in the world of Sugarcane Lane. Okay, so those are children's books. And really recently, I decided to venture into the world of literature for slightly older children. At school, I ran across a book called Saved at Sea by Mrs. O.F. Walton. And it's a very classical piece of literature that is just a great story. And I love the writing style of Mrs. Walton. I think that it's just a classic. I love it. And the style is really very different than anything in the world of Sugarcane Lane. So I thought, I'm going to challenge myself. I'm going to write this story like it's a classic book for, older kids. Not quite middle grade, but it's slightly older kids. I think that I have 15,000 words in this document. I wish I could pull it up, but I'm going to call it Project Painter. I'm actually finished with 2 drafts of this book, and really only thing that needs to be done is formatting. Like, I have the document on my computer and everything. I need to format it and then print it so I can see. That's my final thing that I do with all of my drafts and final copies. I like to print them and feel them and look at them on fresh paper and not online on a document, because I feel like I lose sight of, I lose my editing eyes on a document when I stare at it for so long, like an online document. So I'm going to print that out as soon as I finish the formatting. It's only 5 chapters long, maybe 15,000 words, about a boy who learns life lessons from a reclusive painter up on a mountain. So I think that's a really fun story that I've really been enjoying writing so far. He just learns life lessons, growing into his manhood and understanding, how to use the masculine qualities that he's been given. So that's one that's called Project Painter. And I actually think I'm going to be done with that one by the end of January. Actually, even before. That's a generous timeline. If I say I'm going to be done by the end of January, that's a very generous timeline. If I ever had a day where I was undisturbed, I could finish this book in a day. But when you have kids and a job and family responsibilities and church volunteer, all that stuff, things don't get, finished as quickly, which I think is good for me though, because I can really make a story the best that it can be given that time. So I think that's really fun. So I've been through Project Tears and I've been through Project Painter. And then lastly, another fantasy one that I think will be middle grade. I know I'm just covering the whole span here. I've got little baby books. I've got children's books. I've got an elementary school, a kid book. I've got a young adult book. I've got a middle grade book. I've got a big novel. This is, whoa. But really, this is where I am. I'm learning how to write different things at this point of my career, at this point of my journey as a writer. So I'm going to call this one Project Rider, R-I-D-E-R, not writer, but R-I-D-E-R, like writing. It's also a fantasy for middle grade, I think is what it'll be. But I have only very slightly brainstormed that. That's getting put on the back burner, and it's going to be a project that's going to take a while. It's not as important right now as Project Tears. So the first thing that gets finished is Project Painter. That's like the next thing that I'm going to put out and be done with and be finished with. The second thing will be another 2 stories from the world of Sugarcane Lane. Those are 2 stories that will likely come out in the spring. So I have this mapped out, right? I've got Project Painter in January, World of Sugarcane Lane in the springtime, and then all along, like slowly in the background of all of those immediately published stories is Project Tears. That's just, I'm steady plucking away at that, and there are times where like I want to be done with this, I'm tired of this, I don't want to do this anymore, but like I know that I have to push through for the sake of the story and the sake of the work that I've put forward so far. So I'm really glad about that. So that's just where I am right now, at least for the first 3 months of the year. I've got a plan for publishing Project Painter in January, and then 2 World of Sugarcane Lane stories in February and March, which I'm really excited about. Okay, so let's go on to like the next thing here. So this is finished. And so let's take a break and we'll come back.